Welcome everyone to today's lecture on mindfulness. I am going to keep looking at my phone because I've been promised questions from people who are on Zoom. So if you see me doing that, it's not me ignoring you. So today, tomorrow, and the day after, we're going to have 3 sessions on mindfulness. Most people, when they think of mindfulness, think of Buddhist meditation, because they seem to use that word very extensively. But it also has a very deep meaning in Jain philosophy, and one that's worth thinking about. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what your mind is. You may think you know it, but I'm pretty sure that you haven't thought of it in the way that I'm going to explain it to you. Tomorrow, we will then move on to whether the thoughts that you have are really your own. And once you understand that, then the day after we'll talk a little bit about how you overcome the thoughts that you have and actually become a mindful person. So when you think about this idea of being mindful, what is mindful? And when you think about, when you say I'm doing something mindfully, normally it means you're doing it with care and with attention. So if you're not mindful, then by definition, you're careless. And so this is the difference between mindfulness and non-mindfulness, whether you're careful or careless. And so to understand that, let's start by thinking about what the mind is. People often confuse it with the brain, but the brain is a physical organ in your head. Your mind is not that physical organ. In fact, in Jain philosophy, your mind actually is said to pervade your whole body. It's everywhere. It's the thing that basically gives you the emotions, the passions, all the things that are what you sometimes believe to be a part of you. And in this, you have to think about the mind also in the sense that when you have your senses around you, touch, smell, something has to actually, apart from taking them in, attach emotions to them. How often do you listen to a song and it brings a memory of something that happened the first time you heard the song? You know, if you were hearing the same song when you were on holiday on a beach and then you put it on, suddenly the memories of that holiday come back. That's not the brain understanding the song, that's the mind attaching emotion to it. So it's basically the part of you that is the knower, the thing that is cognizant. But the problem with it is that it is not all-knowing. And in being only partially knowing, what your mind is very clever at doing is actually filling in the blanks with things it assumes. So most of your memories are some things that you have seen, some things that you've heard, some things you've experienced, and then the balance actually put in by your mind to fill the blanks. And that means that even when you come to something like this, if tomorrow I ask 2 of you what happened at the lecture yesterday, you'll have very different memories of it. Because you're not always paying attention, you won't always listen to everything I say, you won't remember it, but you'll fill in the blanks. And therefore that becomes your memory. But we're so used to relying on our memory as if it was totally real. But it isn't. It's the little bit plus the lot made up. And also, we have to think about the mind as also something that is not an organ or a sense that everybody has. If you think about animals, even the smallest animal has a little bit of a mind. It's only when you get to 5 sense animals, horses, cows, etc., that you get a mind, but it's not a full mind. The only animal on this whole planet that has a full mind is us, humans. And by a full mind, I mean one that is able to discriminate. You know the difference between right and wrong. That discrimination is not available to anybody else. And it is because of that discrimination that you can make choices. If you think about animals, most animals have a life that is very controlled. They think about food. They think about not getting attacked and killed by other animals. And they think about multiplying. It's a very programmed set of circumstances. And so we, in addition to that, actually have this ability to make choices, this ability to discriminate. That gives us the ability to spiritually progress, because we're not leading a standard program life. So when you think about this mind that we have, what does it actually do? And I think this is the bit that is critical, the bit that we really, really need to understand. So as a religion, Jainism believes in this idea of duality. Duality means that there are two of you. If you take Dhirubhai here, since he's right next to me, there are two Dhirubhais. There is the physical body that you see as Dhirubhai, and then there is the energy, the consciousness, the Atma, the soul, whatever you call it, that is in that body that is Dhirubhai. So there's a duality. So the question is, why does he have that? Yeah, that's great. Why does he have that body? The philosophical answer to this is because he has karma that is attached to his soul, for whatever reason. But because of that, that karma, which is physical, is given him a physical body so he can experience it. So the purpose of that body is that you can experience the karma that you have. But it is also a body that, if you learn how to control it, can help you get rid of the karma. So there's two things, which is why you see two different ways of life. Us as materialistic lay people, and you see sadhus who have given up the material world and follow a path that is very different. And the reason is that this body can either be used as an experience or as a means of removing the karma that you have. But you might actually say, well, I have karma, I have this body, but so what? It's it's not a bad life. But this is not a bad life. When you look at the other types of life, whether it's animals or whatever else, whether it's people in sub-Saharan Africa that are suffering and not getting food, these are all life. And as a soul, as an Atma, we have the ability to reincarnate to any of those. So what is it that we believe in with this duality? Well, we believe that this soul is yours, it's individual. It's not part of a greater good. It's not part of some God that is a creator. It's yours. And so you are on your own individual personal journey. Remember that, individual personal journey. That means it's you, you, and you, right? And when you think about this life, this body, what's going to happen in this life that's going to make you suffer? Well, age is one thing, because with age comes illness and disease. Whether you get a good birth, a bad birth, whether you live your life, peacefully in calm or full of worry, All of these things are the experience that this body in this life is giving you. So apart from soul, which is not physical and permanent, you have the body, which is very physical and very temporary. We all die. The only reality that there is, we all die. But in addition to that, we, because of our senses, can see, smell, touch this body. And as we can do that through the senses, the difference between the body and the soul is the body is here and we can see it. Whether we have a soul or not is belief, faith. We've never seen it. We've never experienced it. One, we can see today, it's here, and, I need a haircut. I don't actually, but that is there. But if I say, I'm doing this for my Atma, I have to first believe I have an Atma. That's belief. So when I'm thinking about this belief, and, whether is this religion or any other, this sense of belief is always there. If you're a Hindu and you believe that there is somebody called Krishna who created the universe and through whose grace, you can get to moksha, or whether it's Jesus or Allah or whatever, there's a belief in something beyond what we are. That's religion, right? That's faith. And the religion is the practice of rituals in line with that faith. So if you believe in Atma, then you should also believe in karma. Because karma is the thing that attaches a body to that Atma. Okay? And if you believe in karma and this body, then there must be a way of binding that karma and a way of releasing that karma. And if you logically, therefore, get to a point where you release all your karma, then you're liberated. Buddha, Mahavir, all these people that you see, the word liberation, nirvan, moksha, that's what it means, that they have freed their soul from the jail that is the body by removing their karma. Right?
How is...
I'm coming to that. So, if we believe in that set of simple rules, that there is a soul, it is bound, there is a means of bondage, there is a means of release, and at the point of release, there is moksha or liberation, then we have to start by thinking about what is the cause of bondage. What causes that bondage? And in Jainism, there are two elements, two parts to bondage. You have to attract things towards you. When they get to you, the question of whether you bind them or how strongly you bind them then determines the strength of that bondage. If you have one of those wallpapers that you can wipe, and I write something on them, you wipe it off, it gets rid of the marker pen. If I take a paintbrush and put heavy paint, it sticks and you can't get rid of it. So let's just think about the first element, which is what causes attraction to you. The word we use in Jainism is yoga. Yoga is not yoga. It's not a mat and all sorts of exercises that I can't do anymore. Yoga means action. And action means any activity of the mind, of speech, or of body. But, and this is the big but, and the but you must pay attention to, that they are all equal. I don't have to physically get up and slap Tirubai. I just have to sit here and think about it with the same passion, and it has the same effect. for my karma. So the two important things to understand, three important things. Firstly, that this is all equal, right? Now, the second thing is in this equality, the attraction, because let's face it, I mean, in reality, we're probably all cowards. I'm never going to go up and say to Dhirubhai, I'm going to slap you, and I'm never going to physically do it. But I might think about it. So if we're all cowards, then the mind is the most likely way that we're going to attract karma, through our thoughts.
Thinking is as good as doing.
Yes, it's the same. You don't have to stab anybody. You can think about it and it's the same. And if there is time, I'll explain why that is. So thinking is the attraction. But I said that there are two causes. One is the attraction and the other is bondage. So when you think about bondage, that depends on the passion you attach to that action. Now, if I slap somebody and I'm laughing and having a play and a joke, that's a very different slap to if I slap somebody and I'm full of anger. And if I'm full of anger, where is my anger? In my mind. So my mind is capable of both attracting karma and binding it strongly. If I am doing that with my mind, and I might be doing this whilst I'm driving, daydreaming, what am I doing? Because it doesn't take account to this idea of daydreaming. It's still my mind doing it. What I'm doing is I am binding my future, my destiny, unknowingly. Yes, because a karma will give you the same effect. So in that scenario, when people say to you simple things like be kind, what they're saying is that if you're always kind and compassionate and have that positive outlook, that's what your life will become, because that's the karma you bind. Once you bind that karma, you have to have the reaction. Karma follows Newton's law. To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the reaction is your kindness. You're always nice to people. You'll find people are always nice to you. If you spend your time trying to deceive people, you'll always come across people who will try and deceive you. And so we're in a situation here. So rule number one, mind, speech, and body are all equal. Remember that. So your thoughts are as bad as your deeds. Rule number two is that when you look at how you bind karma, you attract it through your thoughts and you fix it strongly, hard, through the passion, the anger, the jealousy, the hatred, the greed that you have. Both exist in your mind. Now, the third thing to think about with this, there is a very important third thing, is that when that karma is bound, what am I binding? I am binding karma of having had anger and caused violence. If I'm slapping somebody when I'm really angry. But there is no name on that karma. It does not say, slapped Dhirubhai because you are angry at him. And it doesn't mean that it is only Dhirubhai that can come and hit me when that karma comes. There is no name on the karma. So that other person, what is he doing in all of this? What is he doing in all of this? When you hear about people having genetic, that inclined towards some kind of illness, what they normally say is that your genes will load the gun, but the environment is necessary to pull the trigger. If you know that there is some sort of illness, you have high blood pressure in your family, and what you do is do all the things necessary to keep your pressure low, it is likely it will stay low. So this idea of doing something, there are three elements to it. There is the fact that the karma comes about. giving you a feeling. There is then somebody who is a catalyst. Think about this, a catalyst that then gives rise to that karma. And then there is what you do as a consequence. I feel angry, and how many of you have ever said, you know, I'm feeling a bit uneasy, a bit angry because I feel that way. And then something happens, and that gives rise to anger. And then out of that anger, I slap. So in that, if you think about it, the person who caused that anger, is he a reason for that anger? Well, how often do you see, you know, with young children, how often do you see that when young children make a mess, the mother who says, they're children, they always make a mess, is the same mother who says, why did you have to make a mess today when I have to get ready and go out? You know, you're making my life so difficult. Of all days, you made a mess today. It's the same situation, but it's a reaction that's different. And if the reaction is different, that means that the cause and the effect is here. It's not there. So when we say that person did something to me, that person caused me harm, that person did this, no, they didn't. They were just the catalyst, the environment that caused you yourself to do that. Yes? So in this formula, which is a very important formula, your speech and your actions are the same, and your thoughts, that somebody else is a catalyst that then gives rise to this, and you act towards that person believing that that person has done something or caused your anger or been the, you know, the consequence. Whereas what it is in reality is your karma coming up. That's it. You and your karma. No name, nothing else. But you bound it, because that's why you have it. And as it rose, who got angry? You did. And then who did the slapping? You did. The other person is just a witness. And on another day, he would have made you laugh, the same action. So when you think about it like that, what is then the key to all of this? Mindfulness. Because if you are strong enough mentally to understand what is going on, then you can actually stop the process and say, hang on, this is not me. But as it stands, the problem that we have, coming back to where we were, is this idea of faith. That even though each one of you knows that in some point on this planet, within the next 100 years, you're going to die, and we don't know when, none of us are willing to believe in that reality, even though that's the absolute reality. And we're not willing to believe in the reality that is beyond this life, the permanent reality, because if we were, we wouldn't spend all our time living as this physical person, which is what we do. And as this physical person, this idea of karma and atma is alien to us, because it relies on belief. You can't see the karma and you can't see the atma. You can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it. And so what happens is, in this scenario that I've just explained, what happens is that the rationale is that Dhirubhai made me angry, and because he made me angry, I reacted. And that will fix in my mind. And even next year, at the same place, when I see him, I'll say, he's the man who made me angry. And then I'll get that baggage, that anger. And this is one of the reasons we actually do Pratikaman, to try and reduce this baggage, by saying Michami Dukram and by saying that to everybody on the last day. So just think about in that sort of way. The question that then comes about and is that if Dhirubhai was not the cause of the anger, either in the last life, because I don't know whether I knew him in my last life, or in this life, but he's just the catalyst, then the question is, why do we have so much attachment to things that we consider ours? You understand that? Okay. So let's think about this in that way. If you're sitting on a park bench and there are two kids playing on the swings, and the first kid falls off, and you say, oh, I hope he's okay. I hope his mother is somewhere near and is not hurt. End of story. The second kid falls off, and he's your grandson. You'll be there faster than Usain Bolt. What's the difference? Two kids, same age, same situation. There's an attachment to one. So what are we attached to? We're attached to everything that we think belongs to this body. My house, my car, my family, my kids. But just go back a little bit logically. That the karma you bind does not have a name attached to it. We said that, right? So when that's the case, what we do is we actually, through our attachment, bind all these karmas that affect us, but not the persons that we attach them to. Does that make sense? And in the next life, who even knows whether we will be with the same people? And the reason I tell you that logically, and I'm going to explain this logically. If it doesn't make logical sense, tell me. Is that your next life is determined by your thoughts, words, and deeds, which bind your karma. And in that karma, whatever you bind gets you to a next life, right? So, argument's sake, if you want another human life and you have to get 100 credits, make this simple. To get 100 credits, you have to have 100 positive thoughts. The person next to you can only come with you to the same place at the same time if they've had the same thoughts and said the same things. And then what is the chances? 0. So logically, if you believe in this theory of reincarnation and karma, you're not going to take everybody that you're attached to, yet that attachment is a big cause for the way that you react and bind that karma. So in all of this, what happens is that there is a huge amount of activity that depends entirely on your mind. In that activity, and your mind actually becomes very key to this. So in that activity, let's now think about what the mind does, because I think it's important to understand how your mind operates. So today I'm going to talk about how the mind works. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about whether the thoughts you have are your own. And the day after I'm going to talk to you about how to get beyond all of this and become mindful, okay? So when you have karma, so karma is this particle. So Jainism believes this whole universe is full of particles. Science now I think calls them ether or dark matter. We've been talking about these invisible particles for a couple of thousand years, and they're very highly described. And what it says is that when you do yoga action, they come to you. Your passion then binds them, and they become a physical particle that is now attached to your soul. Let's not get into technicalities of how something physical attaches to something that is not physical, but they're in the same space, which means that whatever your soul does is affected by this particle, right? So why am I short and somebody is tall? Why am I like this? Somebody's not. All of these factors are built by this karma. So at some point in time, this karma will reach end of life. Because when I bound it for 5 years. The 5 years have finished. It now has reached end of life. What happens next? Well, assume this karma was, for argument's sake, jealousy karma. Because when I bound it, I was intensely jealous of somebody that just bought this brand new car that I really wanted. I was really jealous and I bound this karma. 5 years have passed. Now I have to get an equal and opposite reaction. The way that happens is that it rises from your soul and your mind starts to experience what it is. So if it is jealousy, your mind starts to become intensely jealous, right? And in that intense jealousy, something then has to trigger it. So you suddenly see your next door neighbor pull up with his brand new car. So now you've got the environment, you've got the catalyst. The word that we use is nimit. That catalyst then brings feelings of jealousy into you. And you then react. So what does react mean? You can swear at them, you can, call them all sorts of names, you can talk about them badly. And if you remember the Pratikaman we went through, these are all things that we say Michami Dukram for. This is why. And you don't have to do it physically. You don't have to do it verbally. You can just think about those things. And you're now doing those things and you have the intense passion of jealousy. What is that going to do? It is going to bind that karma back, attached to you for the next 5 years. And that will answer 2 of your questions. Why does the same things keep happening to the same people? This is why. Why does bad things keep happening to good people? Because at some point in time, they were bad. Now suddenly after this point, I become intensely good. I still have to suffer the bad karma. So in that whole process, just think about what I said first, right? In that whole process, the feeling of jealousy, where did that come from? Me. Why did it come from me? Because I had previously bound the karma. I then became jealous when somebody pulled up in a new car. Now, it might not even have been his car. He might have crashed his car and a friend has lent him his car for a couple of days. But I had already, and I said this to you, that your mind sees this much and makes up that much. Already said, he's bought this new car because he knows I've got, a big car and he wants to be better than me. I've already made that decision. I then display intense jealousy and I bind the karma. I'm the cause, I'm the result, I'm the sufferer. And in that, the other person has actually done nothing. So you see this whole cycle? So this is the delusion that we live in. Now you might say, it can't be true because, I have, kids and I see them grow up and whatever. There's a couple of people here I know who have a couple of kids here with them. So 2 simple questions. You have 2 kids, you give them the same house, the same love and care, the same attention, the same education, etc. Why are they not the same? Because they come with their own karma. The second question is, even when you put them in the same schools, why don't they get the same grades? You've put the effort in. You sit there and do homework with them every day. You take your slipper out when they don't get their work done in time. You pick them up, you drop them to school, you make sure they have tuition, but still they do not get the same grades. So in all of that, what do you have control of? You have control of the effort that you put in. I can pick up this child, drop him to school, drop him back, drop him to class, drop him to sports, drop him to music lessons, drop him to everything else. I'm putting the effort. Whether he's paying attention, whether he's learning, whether he's progressing, what are you going to do? So this is the next lesson to learn, that in this life, not only does the other person not affect what you do to yourself, but the only thing that you have, the only tool that you have is effort. Effort. Put, yeah. Yeah. So what the different approach will do is it might help them, but what it shows is that if you have two children, putting the same effort in both kids will not actually give you the same outcome, right? So what that says is that the effort and the result are not connected. Even in Hinduism, in the Gita, it says the same thing, that the effort is yours, Krishna says to Arjuna, but the result is mine. I.e., you have no control over what happens. So but in that scenario, just think about how we live in this life. We live as if we're never going to die, and we live as if our effort will always get a result. Because I'm sending my child to the best school, he'll always do well. He'll get to university. And because I'm sending him to the best university, he'll get a good job. And now that he has a good job, he'll, et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of perpetuate this same thought sequence. And what happens at the end of that sequence? We come, we study, we work, we get our retirement at the point where our body can't actually do very much, and then we die. And we think that's a good life. And in that, what we then do is look at the physical aspects of that life, because we don't forget the physical we can see, the Atma we cannot see. So we look at the physical aspects, looks, house, money, friends, etc. And that's the measure of our success. I have the best set of friends. I have the biggest house. Look at the car. I'm earning so much. And that actually, so one of the things we'll talk about in a couple of days is social media. But social media, the reason it's so big is that it perpetuates that. I'm in the best restaurant. I take a selfie, put it out there. What am I doing? I'm telling the world I am at the best restaurant. Why? Because it shows that I am better than everybody else. So we perpetuate this thing. And in that perpetuation, what are we actually doing? What we're doing is in ourselves strengthening this belief that I am the body and I am the mind, and these are my thoughts, and these are my feelings, and getting further and further away from saying this body is temporary, it's going to die, it's full of disease, and it's going to age and cripple me. But it's not me, I am the soul. It's only here because I'm bound. Because those are the two dualities, those are the two realities. Jeev and Ajeev. Jeev, soul, Ajeev, body. Physical particle that's going to die, right? But our focus on that physical means that our focus on the non-physical is finished. Even the things that we used to do that were related to the non-physical, to the Atma, like religion, we've switched that around. And again, one of the verses in the Pratikamana, the way we've switched it around is that we actually will go to a temple, may my kids pass their exams. Oh God, they're working so hard. Please make sure that they do well. Or, my business, I've put so much effort, make sure that it's a success. What are we doing? The things that were supposed to be there for the benefit of our Atma to progress it, we have also now attached them to this physical space, the materialism that we live in. So, coming back to this, what does this actually tell you? And then I'm going to stop in about 3 minutes, and then let's have some questions. Yeah. So the first thing that I was going to say is that in many ways, karma, although it's not a living thing, like all living things, it wants to survive. Self-preservation. The way it survives is to make sure that when it's bound to you, it's very difficult for you to release. Because every time something happens, your karma will make sure that you repeat the action to bind it again. No, it's destroyable, but you have to destroy it. The soul cannot be destroyed. So what happens is that when you get anger because something happens, what you tend to do is attach three things to that anger. You start with I am angry rather than I have anger. Two different things. One is to have that emotion and the other is to express the emotion. So you say, I am angry. The reason I'm angry is because I'm like that. I don't like injustice, and therefore I've seen something I don't like, and therefore it's made me really angry. And then out of that anger, you express it. You scream, shout, say, think, whatever. And that anger karma is really happy because it's now bound itself back again. And guess what? You're going to be angry again. And then what happens? People say, he's an angry man. Actually, he's not an angry man. He's just a man that can't get rid of his anger karma that is bound. So this is the one fact of life. The other fact of life is there is a concept called Maya, delusion. And think of everything I've said to you, it's a very difficult thing to believe. But if everybody that you're attached to is temporary because you're temporary, if everybody that causes you to bind karma is just a trigger, it's just the environment, just a catalyst, because you bind your own. Have you seen, so many people who have all the material riches but live in misery? And then you go to the villages in India and they have so little, but they live in such happiness. So it's not caused by the environment, it's caused from here. And so we live in this idea that, having the house, the car, the job, the whatever, is the way to achieve safety and happiness and so on. And so towards that end, we work madly, we kind of suffer all these things. That is our delusion, that we have convinced ourselves that this life is defined in those ways. And the reason we have is because the opposite, which is that you actually start to live as if you are the soul stuck in a body, requires faith. And to get that faith, to actually experience your soul, there is no prescription. And it's a bit technical, but typically, every person you see in India who is a sadhu, who actually practices the traditional sadhu path, is typically somebody who has experienced their soul. They've reached a level of self-experience. And what happens at that point? The first thing they do is give up the material world. They give up all of that, all their connections, their name. They live with one piece of cloth, no attachment, walk barefoot, no mobile phone, no credit card, no fear, no... If you have forgotten your mobile phone and your credit card and you're sitting on a train, you turn the car around. How attached are we? These guys don't even know where their next meal is coming from, and yet they're in bliss. So I'm going to stop there because it's 10:02, I think.
I have one question.
Yes. Yes.
And we try
So that was also a question that you asked. I was saving that for day 3, but I'll give you a brief answer. So one of the first things I said is that there is this idea of carelessness, because mindfulness is careful and the opposite is careless. Carelessness is one of the biggest reasons to bind karma. If you become mindful, then the karma inflow stops, and I'll explain that later. But also, even though you're experiencing it, nothing happens. Now, one of the ways to do this is meditation. So, simple question. If you take Buddha and Mahavir, for 12 years after Diksha, Diksha at 30, liberation at 42, for 12 years, what did he do? What did Mahavir do? Meditate. Why? Mindful. You achieve a level of mindfulness, you can overcome this, because your thoughts are the biggest binders of your karma. Right? The second is that if you think about a simple act, so most of you drove here from home. And if I ask you, as you were driving, how many, men did you see in a green suit? Who knows? Because you were daydreaming, most likely. Because most people, when they drive on automatic. There's no awareness, there's no mindfulness. So this idea that when you see a sadhu walk, that they have this whisk, rajoharan, and they're brushing insects in front of them, looking only 3 to 4 feet ahead, that's mindfulness. When we walk, we just walk, and all the insects on the way get trodden on. And that treading on those insects, remember, janta ajanta. Even if you do it not knowingly, in ignorance, you still get the full impact. Ignorance is not a way out. So what we're doing is, by not being mindful, we're actually a walking disaster. Because everything we do, we're thinking about something else. We're thinking about, what we need to do for dinner. Do I need to go to Tesco's to buy milk for tomorrow? Am I allowed to eat after pratika? We're lost in all of this. And at the same time, what we're doing is binding all of this karma. In that bondage, then we get suffering, right? So you're right about one thing, that when you do good deeds and you bind good karma, if that good karma is rising at the same time as the bad karma, it offsets the bad karma, right? So you get some relief. So because I have caused somebody else to have a huge car crash, I'm going to have a car crash because that's the karma. But because I've been so good all my life, when that crash happens, the car is written off, but I walk away without injury. That's the good karma getting me out of that car crash. So when you see that, always remember that it's not saying, oh, poor guy, he lost his car. Fortunate guy that his good karma saved him. Because that is how good karma works. The action will happen, but your consequences will be heavily reduced. I've stopped. It's 5:02. So please ask. Yes. Yes.
If you have a confidence, now
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to knock me, man in front going to turn right, and my own thing. So, is that's not karma, that's thoughtfulness. It's like you.
What causes, so the question, I'm just for the people there, is Dhirubhai saying that if he I did an advanced motorcycle test or course, riding course, so that he was, able to see and understand the surroundings better, and hopefully saved him. Is that karma? So there are two things. Why doesn't everybody do it? Apart from that, most people are lazy. What causes laziness? The lethargy from your karma, right? If you're disciplined, you'll just get up and do it. So that effort, remember, effort is always in your hands. Whether you apply that effort, I could have woken up half an hour earlier today and done half an hour more work on this lecture. Or I could have said, I'm sure it'll be fine, and slept for half an hour. That's in my hands. So the fact that you did it is actually a very big sign of discipline. The second thing with that discipline, it means that what you're then able to do, because you're putting good effort into this, is that is the good effort that is also going to negate some of that. When people say, oh, you are lucky, there's no such thing as luck. What it is that you're well prepared because you put the effort in and you did that. If you worked hard and they said, oh, you're lucky, all the exam questions were the ones that you knew. Well, you only knew them because you'd worked hard and covered all of them. Yes. And so that course actually is the consequence of the good karma that you bind. So the other thing I want to leave you with, a thought for today, is that if your karma is yours, and I know we've talked a lot about karma, but tomorrow we'll move on. If that karma is yours, then when you look at everybody else, are you really able to do anything for anybody else except be the catalyst for them to do things for themselves? Okay, let me say that again. Are you able to do anything for anybody else except become the catalyst for them to do things for themselves? So if I'm a child, right, and I know that my mother is going to get angry if I don't study, so I sit and study, am I not studying, and is that mother not just a catalyst that is making me do this? Because the moment she pops out to Tesco to do some shopping, I'll just put the TV on and put my feet on. So in that scenario, just think about this. Can you really do something for anybody else? Yes, without being a catalyst. And similarly, can anybody do anything for you? Think about that for tomorrow. Because in that lies your answer to all of this.
What do you mean without being
Yes.
totally independent? So
Yes. Yes. Are you able to affect anything for anybody? Are you able to make something happen for them, change their direction, make them think like that, make them... Yes. But so if for example, if you think I should learn Sanskrit, can you do anything that makes me learn Sanskrit apart from perhaps standing over me and saying, if you don't learn it, I'm going to hit you, and so the fear of being hit, I will sit and learn? Apart from that, can you actually do anything for me? Or can I do anything for you? I can lend you the books, but can I make you read them? But how do you bind? So the question is, if he can't do anything for anybody, how am I going to bind good karmas? It's the same way. If you are compassionate, karuna, where is your compassion? It's in your mind, in your heart. That is good karma, because that is the outlook, that is the thoughts, that is the actions. It doesn't mean it'll do anything. If we have a doctor here, how many times do you see somebody who comes with an emergency? You're the doctor. Does that mean you can fix it? Sometimes, not always. You know, and whether you're there or not, does it have an impact? Sometimes, not always. So all of these things, you see, where is the guarantee that because I'm here, this will happen? Or because of that person, I will be fine? Or, you know, in all of this, where is that? Because if that isn't there, then think about the consequence.
And in all of this, essentially, you don't do things for others. The journey is your own journey.
That's what I started with. Individual, personal journey for you to experience. So the question was, sorry, I keep forgetting people out there. So the question was, you don't do anything for anybody else. The journey is your own. Well, when I started, I said you have an individual, personal journey, and this body that you're bound in, and the reason you're bound is either you believe that this body is it, this life is it, and that's it, or you believe that there is, you know, when you look at a dead person, I'm sure we've all seen somebody who's passed away. When you look at a dead person, the first reaction normally is he doesn't look like that, like he used to. And the reason is that Atma, that consciousness, that energy has left. But left for where? It's gone to the next body. So if we believe that it was there and it's moved to the next body, there must be something that decides which next body, which is the karma, Ayush karma. And the second thing that is decided in that is, you know, what type of body and where and so on. So that journey, the people that you left behind aren't going to come on that journey with you. You've left. And when you came into this journey, they didn't come from where they came from. They've come because they've got a karma set that is similar to yours, and they've come so that you're here together, right? Yeah. So the delusion in this, and this is what I'm going to leave you with, because to explain to you about your thoughts, I have to explain the delusion. The delusion is that the people that you're attached to is temporary. The people that cause you anger, pride, deceit, greed, jealousy, hatred, etc., are just catalysts. You're doing it to yourself. And the third thing, sorry, just one more thing. The third thing is you can't do anything for them and they can't do anything for you. But you still live as if you can do everything. You're kind of, you know, in this material world, and you're going to live forever. Sorry, question.
This brings us back to being mindful. The whole question of being mindful.
So what you have to understand in this, right, is, which is tomorrow, which is what are your, you know, the thoughts that you have, are they yours? Because once you understand what is yours, you will understand how to. So I'm telling you, the effort is yours, right? And effort comes from where? Effort comes from discipline. That, you know, we had a few months ago, a gentleman by the name of Kyle Kotari on the stage, who had won the diving championship. Yeah. So Kyle's father and I grew up together. Many years ago, in the 70s and 80s in Easton, yeah. And I can tell you that to get to where he has, you know, it's 4 o'clock every morning, and you're sitting there practicing, and then you go to school, and then you go back and practice, and then you go to sleep at some late hour, and the next day you do it again and again and again for year after year after year. What is the guarantee that he would have succeeded? None. But you put your effort and you take an outcome. For a while, there was no outcome because he was injured, and they thought the injury might stop everything, right? So, and he got that. How many others were in that competition who didn't win? But they've put the same effort. So this is what I'm saying, that we live like everything we do will happen. Otherwise, oh, I suffered bad luck. and we live like we're never going to die, and we live like we have complete control of the people around us. And I'm saying that that's all a delusion. And so it's past 9 o'clock. We'll stop. Thank you so much. And tomorrow we have to do a second one.